Have you ever wondered what would happen if, for a moment, you stopped living according to others' expectations and began living according to your own truth? What if the simple act of choosing yourself became the trigger for a silent revolution in your life? Carl Jung, the master of depth psychology, showed us that the most powerful and most feared path is the one that leads inward. When we finally choose ourselves, we not only change our destiny, we alter the frequency at which the universe communicates with us. Doors that once seemed locked open, the right people appear, and answers arrive. And it all starts with one decision: to come back to yourself. Now tell me in the comments, I choose myself every day. If this phrase resonates with your heart, this video is for you. Carl Gustav Jung believed that the most important journey a human being can undertake is the journey toward their own individuality. In a world where we are constantly pressured to conform to please, belong, or follow external patterns, Jung reminds us that true power lies in living according to what stirs within us. He called this process individuation, the development of a whole human being, aware of all their parts, including both light and shadow. Choosing yourself in this context means beginning that journey of individuation. It means confronting your shadow, all those aspects of your personality that you reject, repress, or ignore, and integrating them without judgment. It is recognizing that the discomfort you feel when living a life that does not represent you is actually a call from the unconscious, trying to reconnect you with your essence. Jung also spoke about projection, the unconscious mechanism by which we transfer our internal conflicts onto the outside world. When we do not choose ourselves, we tend to live at the mercy of these projections, seeing in others what we lack, blaming the world for a disconnect that actually starts within us. By choosing ourselves with honesty and courage, we break this cycle and reclaim our personal power. Furthermore, Jung pointed out the importance of integrating the masculine and feminine principles of the psyche, the animus and the anima, as a fundamental part of the healing and wholeness process. Choosing yourself is also about balancing reason and intuition, strength and sensitivity, action and contemplation. When we make this authentic choice, the universe does not respond by chance. Through synchronicity, it reflects the transformation that begins within our inner world. There is a quiet moment in all our lives when, even when surrounded by people, commitments, and achievements, we feel an inexplicable emptiness. This inner silence is not a lack of noise, but rather the absence of true listening. It is the voice of the soul stifled by external demands. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Yet most people have been conditioned to seek all the answers, happiness, love, recognition, direction, outside themselves. The price is high, the loss of connection with oneself. When you ignore your own essence to meet the expectations of others, be it family, culture, or society, you slowly drift away from who you truly are. Every choice that contradicts your truth is a vote of distrust in your soul, and a soul neglected for too long begins to fall silent. This is how the feeling of emptiness is born. It is not the absence of life, but the absence of a life lived from within. According to Jung, the unconscious is a living intelligence that constantly tries to compensate for the imbalances of consciousness. When we live a life disconnected from who we really are, the unconscious reacts. It sends subtle signals, a discomfort, inexplicable fatigue, insomnia, a sadness without apparent cause. These symptoms are not problems to be ignored or fixed, but messages, urgent pleas for you to return to yourself. They are the manifestations of a soul that wants to be heard. Ignoring yourself is one of the greatest acts of internal violence. You adapt, you mold yourself, you say yes when you mean no, and you remain where you do not want to be. Over time, you begin to lose the sense of what truly matters. Even if everything seems to be working, a part of you knows that something is out of place. The enthusiasm fades, creativity disappears, and life turns gray. This is because living against yourself drains psychic energy. The psyche needs coherence between the inner and outer worlds to generate vitality. Without it, stagnation sets in. The disconnection from oneself also directly affects the way you relate to the world and to others. When you are disconnected from your own essence, you tend to project onto others what you fail to recognize in yourself. You seek outside what you have abandoned within. Jung called this projection and noted that it is a serious obstacle to growth. Instead of loving, you idealize. Instead of forming genuine bonds, you cling out of fear. The other becomes a distorted mirror of your own shortcomings. The solution to this emptiness is not found by changing your environment, job, or partner, although these changes can be part of the process. True transformation begins when you allow yourself to truly listen to yourself. This means slowing down, silencing the external noise, and asking those uncomfortable questions. What do I really want? What am I pretending not to see? Which parts of me have I rejected? Reconnecting with your soul requires courage. Often, what lies dormant within you are legitimate desires that have been suppressed, emotions that were not allowed expression, and potentials ignored out of fear of judgment. Rescuing all that is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Because only by reclaiming your inner integrity can you feel peace. Not a superficial peace, but one that comes from living in harmony with your truth. Jung stated that there is no awakening of consciousness without pain, but this pain does not have to be eternal suffering. It can be the starting point. The emptiness you feel is an invitation. Return to yourself, not in haste, but with presence, honesty, and commitment. Choosing yourself is, above all, an act of reconnecting with life. It is the first step toward transforming the silence of the soul into a song of authenticity and freedom. From an early age, we learn to please others. First our parents, then teachers, friends, bosses, and partners. Society teaches us that to be loved is to conform, that being accepted depends on how well we adapt to external expectations. Little by little, we drift away from who we truly are, exchanging authenticity for acceptance, truth for approval. And over time, we even forget what it would be like to live as our true selves. Carl Jung warned us, the greatest tragedy is becoming what others expect of you instead of being who you are. Living to please others is a subtle process of self-abandonment. With every choice made out of fear of judgment, rejection, or the desire to please, a piece of our soul dims. The result is an existence that, on the outside, appears to function, but on the inside echoes an unsettling silence. This behavior is sustained by unconscious protection mechanisms developed throughout life, especially in childhood, when we realize that being authentic could mean being punished, ignored, or left aside. This way of living puts us in a constant state of tension. In trying to meet external expectations, we create a persona, a social role, a mask we believe is necessary to be loved or accepted. Jung described the persona as a kind of psychic shell that we use to interact with the world. It is necessary to a certain extent, but when we identify solely with it, we lose access to the depth of our own soul. The consequence is a distancing from our essence, a feeling of falseness, or simply acting in our own lives. Radical authenticity begins when we realize that living to please others is, in fact, a path to losing meaning. When we recognize that every time we say yes to others and no to ourselves, we reinforce the unconscious idea that our truth does not matter, we face not only an emotional problem, it's a spiritual one. Because denying your truth is like cutting the link with the sacred within you. It blocks the creative energy that fuels growth and personal fulfillment. The process of regaining authenticity is not easy. It involves deconstructing patterns, letting go of idealized images, and often breaking ties based on convenience rather than truth. It demands the courage to be rejected, misunderstood, and even criticized. But it also brings a power that no form of external approval can offer, the power to live with integrity. Jung said that the goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. And being whole means accepting every part of yourself, even those that do not fit into society's expectations. When you stop living to please others, something profound changes within you. An inner strength arises that no longer depends on external validation. This strength is your personal truth. It guides your decisions, steers your steps, and attracts into your life what resonates with your true being. Relationships transform. Some people drift away while others come closer, not because you are imposing anything, but because your frequency changes. You stop vibrating with guilt, fear, or the need to please, and instead vibrate with authenticity, clarity, and determination. At that point, projections begin to dissolve. By no longer living to please others, you also cease expecting others to satisfy you. This opens up space for more mature, reciprocal, and free relationships, ones where there is no need to hide, control, or sacrifice. Relationships in which love is built on truth rather than dependency. Choosing radical authenticity is an act of deep responsibility. It is not about being rebellious or selfish. It is about recognizing that, in order to offer the world the best of yourself, you must first be whole inside. It is about trusting that living your truth, even if it makes some people uncomfortable, is the greatest gift you can give yourself and the collective. Because authentic people not only free themselves, they free others by example. And that, as Jung taught us, is the true meaning of the individuation process. Becoming who you are, and in doing so, contributing to the healing of the world. The relationships we experience do not arise by chance. Every bond, every emotional connection, every significant or even challenging encounter is a direct reflection of the state of our psyche. Carl Jung taught us that what is unconscious in us tends to manifest outside as destiny. This understanding leads to a deep realization. Our relationships are not merely social or emotional experiences, but true mirrors of what occurs in our inner world. By choosing ourselves, the way we relate also changes. And in that change, we begin to attract more authentic, aligned, and transformative connections. When we are disconnected from our essence, our relationships inevitably become a stage for projections. We project onto others our insecurities, our unhealed wounds, our repressed desires. The partner becomes the source of our salvation, or the culprit for our pain. Friends become responsible for our self-esteem, and family for our sense of worth. In this state, there is no true encounter, only a dance between wounds. That is why so many bonds are marked by emotional dependency, unconscious manipulation, fear of abandonment, or the need to control. Jung described this process as the projection of the shadow. The shadow, in his theory, comprises everything we reject in ourselves: traits, impulses, desires, and emotions we deem unacceptable or shameful. When we do not recognize this shadow, it infiltrates our relationships. We get irritated by what we do not tolerate in ourselves, fall in love with those who embody qualities we believe we lack, and try to fix the other, when in fact we are trying to handle parts of ourselves that manifest through them. By choosing ourselves consciously, we begin to remove these projections. We start seeing the other not as a complement or a threat, but as an autonomous being with their own light and shadow. And that is only possible because we first choose to look at ourselves with honesty. The individuation journey proposed by Jung invites us to integrate the unconscious, bringing to light the rejected aspects of our personality. This process makes us more whole, and consequently, better able to relate as whole beings. One of the most liberating aspects of this path is realizing that we can choose with whom we connect. When we are alienated from ourselves, we submit to relationships that do not nourish us, simply because we fear loneliness or believe we do not deserve better. But as we strengthen our inner self-esteem, not the one based on performance, but the one born from self-knowledge, we begin to say no to what does not resonate. We set boundaries with firmness and compassion. And more importantly, we stop seeking in others what we need to find within ourselves. This does not mean that relationships become perfect. On the contrary, they remain arenas for growth, but with more clarity, freedom, and genuine love. We love not because we need to, but because we choose to. We are with another, not out of fear of being alone, but because there is a soulful resonance. This is possible because by choosing ourselves, we activate what Jung called the regulatory center of the psyche, the self. And when the self is in command, it guides us toward experiences aligned with our purpose and essence. At this stage, synchronicity begins to manifest in our relationships. People appear out of nowhere, encounters happen at just the right moment, and deep connections form with ease. It is not magic, it is inner coherence. When you change on the inside, the world around you responds. Jung believed that the unconscious is not only personal, but also collective. By changing your inner vibration, you tap into an invisible network that attracts by resonance experiences reflecting this new frequency. Thus, the most important question is not, why did I attract this person? But what within me allowed or sought this experience? And even more, who do I need to be to attract the kind of relationship my soul yearns for? The answer always lies within you. Choosing yourself is, therefore, an action that reorganizes all your bonds. When you maturely love yourself, you naturally begin to love better. When you respect yourself, you teach others to do the same. And when that happens, relationships cease to be battlefields and become spaces for healing, growth, and genuine connection. There is a quiet and powerful moment when, by choosing yourself with integrity, something outside of you also begins to change. The universe, like a mirror sensitive to the state of the soul, seems to respond with precision, almost magically, to your inner movements. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the significant occurrence of external events that connect with internal states without apparent causal relation. And when you decide to stop betraying, hiding, or diminishing yourself to fit into small spaces, the universe responds. It responds with strength, clarity, and precision. The call of the soul is often subtle at first. It presents itself as restlessness, discomfort, a feeling of being in the wrong place even when everything is fine. It is the unconscious trying to lead you back to your center, to your most authentic purpose. Ignoring this call causes suffering. Answering it requires courage, but it is at that moment that the invisible gears of destiny begin to turn. In Jungian terms, purpose is not an external destination, but an internal process of becoming who you truly are, the path of individuation. This process is not linear. It involves crises, ruptures, losses, but also revelations, encounters, and expansion. When you choose to live in alignment with your essence, you may not know exactly where you will end up, but you feel you are on the right path. This happens because the self, the totality of your being, begins to guide your steps. And in that state of alignment, life starts conspiring in your favor. You begin to notice significant coincidences, a conversation at the exact moment, a book that falls into your hands, a person who appears and brings the key to something you didn't even know you needed. These events are not random. They are reflections of your new vibrational state. The external world is responding to your inner call. The universe does not distinguish between what you say you want and what your energy communicates. When your intention, action, and energy are in harmony, reality organizes itself accordingly. This does not mean that everything will be easy or free of challenges. In fact, many of the deepest tests will come precisely when you decide to live authentically. This happens because the new requires space, and for the new to enter, the old must leave. Relationships may change, professional paths may crumble, beliefs may collapse, but none of this is punishment. It is purification. It is the universe clearing away what no longer resonates with who you are becoming. Jung saw the soul as an autonomous and intelligent force. When you listen to it, it leads you exactly where you need to be, not where the ego would like, but where your transformation is possible. By choosing yourself, you stop living for what others expect and start living from what your soul wishes to express. And that expression is your true gift to the world. Synchronicity is, therefore, a constant reminder that you are in flow. The more aligned you are with your inner truth, the more fluidity you will find in the outer world. Resistance diminishes, signs increase, and decisions become clearer. You no longer need to force, manipulate, or control. You begin to trust. And that trust is not naive. It is based on experience. Once you witness the universe responding to your authenticity, you cannot deny it any longer. There is a greater intelligence working in your favor. Living in alignment with your purpose is not about finding a single immutable mission. It is about allowing your life to become a living expression of your inner truth. When you allow yourself to be whole, what once was effort becomes flow. What once was doubt turns into direction. What once was anguish transforms into peace. A peace that comes not from outside, but from the deep recognition that you are exactly where you should be, being exactly who you came to be. Choosing yourself is, therefore, the beginning of a new reality. A reality in which you not only survive, but live with meaning, presence, and power. A reality where the universe is no longer a battleground, but a silent ally, responding to your courage to be who you really are. Choosing yourself is more than a decision. It is a rebirth. Throughout this narrative, we have explored how internal disconnection generates emptiness, how authenticity transforms our choices, how relationships reflect our inner state, and ultimately, how the universe responds with synchronicity when we align our being with our truth. Inspired by the profound teachings of Carl Jung, this journey invites us to live from the inside out, to recognize that the meaning of life is not found in others' expectations, but in the courage to listen to the soul. True transformation begins the moment you say enough to self-abandonment and yes to your essence. From that moment on, everything changes, both inside and out, and you are not alone on this journey. This channel exists to remind you, every step of the way, that living authentically is an act of courage and love. If this content touched your soul, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share it with someone who also needs to be reminded of who they are. And don't leave just yet. Watch the video appearing on your screen now. It might be the next step in your awakening. Your journey matters, and it begins with one choice: you.